One other thing, I wasn't sure if I was going to include this, but I think some people will be interested in this, is how to use Logic for sampling. And Logic used to have a sampler called the ESX24. They've updated it in the most recent versions in Logic 10, and it's now a lot better than it was before. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick run through of it, show you how to use it basically, and I'll let you explore it in more detail. So I'm just going to use a Logic loop for now. So let's go to Logic loop, and there's an easy way to get into it. You can find the loop you want to use. So this could be from your browser, or it could be a third-party loop, but I'm just going to use Logic for demonstration. I've got one here already selected. So what you can do is, if you just click on it and drag it and then move it over to this far left area here, you'll then get these drop downs, and these are all different things you can import the audio into. So the first one you'll see is Quick Sampler Original. You've then got Quick Sampler Optimized, so this is just a basic versions of the sampler. You can put it into the drum machine designer, so if it's just a kick drum or a snare drum sample, maybe you'd want to put it in there. You've got Alchemy, which is another one of Logic's kind of built-in samplers, which is quite cool. And then you've got Sampler down the bottom, which is like the Big Daddy version of the Quick Sampler here. So you can explore that later, but all I'm going to look at here is using the Quick Sampler just to give you an overview. And you've got Original and Optimized. I'm just going to go to Optimized. So when you do that, this one loads up. This window loads up, and you can see the sample. I should probably play it first, so this is what it sounds like. I've dragged that across and opened it in the quick sampler view. So what that's now done is it's spread it across my keyboard. So if I press a note on my keyboard, then what it's done is it's split all of these regions up automatically into different sections and put them onto my keyboard. So if I play any of these, so it's quite cool. You can create new rhythms and new melodies out of old loops. So it automatically goes onto this slice mode, but you've also got classic, one shot, and recorder. Classic, the way that it moves in classic is that you've got the whole sample spread across one key, but each of the keys can play it at a different pitch. So if I play it at the low C down here, it's going to sound. And you'll see it's been really slowed down and it's lower in pitch. That's at an octave higher, an octave higher, and an octave higher. So you can play around with that in classic mode. You can change the playback, so it can go forward or it can go reverse, which is quite cool. Sounds almost like a violin. You can loop sections as well. So if I turn that on, I've now got areas that I can drag in like this. And I need to turn loop on somewhere. You can change where the sample starts from by moving these ones around. That's not great. You can change the loop forward or reverse. So yeah, you can mess around with that. And you can try the different settings out: forward, alternate, so it'll go backwards and forwards. So that's in classic mode. Let's go over to one shot. How this happens is it changes the operation of your keyboard. So I now have to only press the key once and it will play the whole sample, or this section of the sample. So if I move that back, so they're all going to overlap each other. So once you press one key, it plays it all out. Whereas with the classic mode, you just hold it down, and when you release it, it will stop playing. So that's that. Back to the slices. What we've got here is you can change these slices in a few different ways. You can change it from transient, so it reacts to this is where it's decided to automatically cut up. It's done it based on where it feels like the transient, so the start of the note. So if it hears a new guitar pluck, then it's tried to guess that's where it is. It's not always perfect, but you can change this around. You can change it to beat division, so it will just do it on the beats, or equal divisions, and you can change these, or you can do it manually, so you can add your own kind of things here by clicking and then double click to remove. What you can also do is, if you keep it on slice and change manual to well, transient, or to even beat, if you change this slider here, you can change how many chops there are, how many times it's been chopped up, or the sensitivity here, like how reactive it is to the transient, so you can do that. You can also change things like play to end or gate. Another thing I should mention is this button here. This is a really powerful tool. This is called Flex. You may have recognized the icon. It allows you to retain the speed of the original sample even when you change the pitch, because normally if you pitch something down, it gets slower, or if you pitch something up, it gets faster. What this does is it retains the original pitch, which is really handy. So it's best if I demonstrate this probably in the classic view, but it works in all of them. So if I just play the sample as is, so yeah, so that's the original pitch. But if I go down an octave lower, because it's got lower in pitch, it's also got slower. So if I go down even further, you can really hear that. So what this button allows you to do is retain that speed. So this is a really cool function. So if I click that and I hit a C, that low C, you can hear that it's playing exactly the same tempo as the original sample. And you might hear a few artifacts, but it's pretty good. It's pretty close. And if I go to the very high C at the top of my keyboard, obviously it's a lot more glitchy there. It doesn't quite sound as good, but it is the same length of time as the original sample. So it's a cool feature, but you might want to use it within an octave or two within the initial sample, so it doesn't sound too weird. And often, as a rule, if you're pitching down, it tends to sound a bit more, it tends to keep its integrity more than if you're pitching up. That's what I find. So yeah, that's what turning on the flex button does. It's good to know. And also you can put on follow tempo, and what that does is it will change the sample so it's at the same tempo as your project. So now it's 120, so if I play the original, it's been sped up a bit to be 120 because I know the original sample is 90 there. So the pitch is going down, but the tempo is staying the same, or the project, the same as the project. Which is pretty cool. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And the recorder allows you to record stuff into the sampler directly. So you could, if you've got a guitar or something else set up, you could record into that and then you can sample it. Going back to the slice page, let's get a few more of these in. So below this area, if you need to zoom in as well, you can zoom in like that or zoom in like that. And you can snap to the grid if you want, or to the beat or the transient. Then down here you've got some different effects. A good one to know is the pitch, so you can change the coarse tune, which is like the so if I change that, it's automatically shifted all of these by 12 semitones or an octave, or I can pitch it down 24. And then you've got fine pitch as well, so this will just be a bit smaller increments, so like you can do a bit of more subtle detuning. There you can change the glissando or the glide, so it will more glide. So you've got things like LFOs, which are low frequency oscillators. I'm not going to go massively into these, but these are basically, you can use a signal to trigger another signal, for instance. So if I had let's say the filter on, which is over here, and a filter, it acts like an EQ. So can see me cutting off the high end with the filter. This is on pretty much every synth ever, so this is an important one, and you can change the shape of the filter there. So the main ones to worry about are the resonance, which will make it ring out a bit more, or the drive, which is kind of adding distortion. So let's say I've got the filter on 100%, and let's say if we now go back to the LFO, this is where you can select different settings like the speed, like how quickly that low frequency oscillator is going to affect it. So it's probably easier if I set this up first. So you'll need to go to the mod matrix. So first you choose the source, and our source is going to be the LFO. So LFO 1. And then our target is where it's going to end up, and we want that to be our filter cutoff, because that's a common one. So, and then you need to drag this up to 100%. You'll see that orange line now came up. And if I hit the note, you'll hear it go whoop. And the speed is affecting that kind of shaky sound. And you'll hear this on kind of dubstep, drum and bass, or electronica, where you've got it on something a bit lower. That low whoop 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 sound is coming from that kind of set. But on a different particular sound rather than this. But if I was to move that down, you can start getting some cool things just by applying these modulations, the LFO, the LFO2, and then sending it to like the filter, or you could send it to the resonance if you wanted, or the drive. You've got many different options where you want to send these things, so you can get creative with the mod matrix. Only other thing you might want to know really in the sampler view is the envelopes. So the envelopes are how the sound reacts over time. So for instance, you've basically got attack, delay, sustain, and release, and this describes how a sound operates over time. So if I add that here, so here, this one here is your master one basically for the amplitude. So this kind of line comes down here. This one is for your filter. So this, and this one here is for your pitch. So let's say I'm on the amplitude setting here. So if I move this out, this is now the start of the sound because it's the attack here. And I should be able to change it to ADSR, maybe? ADS, that's as close as I'm getting. Okay, so yeah, at the moment, if I now, you'll notice it doesn't attack as quickly as compared to that. So that's 10,000 milliseconds. So it's going to take a while to get up to speed, and the sample runs out before it can get there because it's not a long enough sample. But if it attacks like that, then it's going to come in more quickly. And if you play around with the shape, it's going to change how the sound changes over time, basically. If I do it with a longer sample, so this one here. So here the decay is too short for it to continue, basically, until I move it out. So this is just going to affect how your sounds vary over time, how the sample varies over time. But you'll see this on synthesizers as well. So on any synthesizer, they'll often have an envelope. So these are what envelopes are, these three. And these ones affect the pitch. This one affects the filter, and this one affects the pitch. So you can control different elements of the sounds, how they react over time, which can lead to some cool effects. So yeah, that's essentially the sampler in a nutshell. You can then record these as an instrument. So let me take off that cutoff, and I need to bring this back to a more normal attack. So this is a really good thing to do with vocals. This is how you would do vocal chops, for instance. You can get some pretty wacky sounds out of it, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, you might want to just record something, and you can record anything. But yeah, you can record it in a new melody from an old melody, which I think is really cool. So you can take anything here and then chop it up, rearrange it, do something weird with the samples. You can then add it in the MIDI roll here. I mean, that's going to sound weird, but with some fine tuning, you might make a new melody out of something. So yeah, that was a quick view of the sampler. Experiment around with it. It's a very powerful tool. And remember, you've also got other options like when you drag something in, you've also got other options like the sampler zone per note, which is more advanced. You've got alchemy as well, which you can do some cool stuff. I'm not going to go into alchemy in this course, but you can look through and have a play with that yourself, see what it does. Cool. I'll see you on the next video.